Well, good morning, everyone.
Good.
I am Jackie Speier, and I am a member of Congress representing a large number of you in the House of Representatives. So it is a thrill for me to be here to present to you some phenomenal women, because I want you to grow up to be as good as they are and better. And that's going to be a little tough, but I know you can do it. So this is when I grow up, what do I want to be? So today I want you to spend a lot of time listening really hard and dreaming really hard. Because in truth, there is nothing that can keep you from doing what you want to do when you grow up. So I wanted to start off by telling you what some of you have said to us as to what you want to be when you grow up. An Air Force pilot? Who wants to be an Air Force pilot? No one's admitting to it now? Okay. A scientist? A stylist? A teacher? A doctor? An interior designer? A rocket scientist? A kindergarten teacher? A chef? An optometrist? A pediatric nurse? A spy? A professional cake decorator? I want to work for Genentech. I want to be a physical therapist. I want to be a gymnast, a coach, a marine biologist. I want to be economically secure. I want to be a writer, a nurse, an entrepreneur, a veterinarian, an important and influential leader. Now every single hand should go up now. Let me say to them, put your hands up. No matter what you do in life, you want to be influential and you want to be a leader, right? Now I have one beat with all of these I want to be's. Not one of you said you wanted to be a politician. Not one of you said, I want to be a congresswoman. We have some adults who want to be congresswomen, but how about you? So maybe by the end of our program this morning, you'll have new ideas. How many of you are from Hoover School? No? We thought lots of girls were coming from Hoover. How about Tara Linda? Okay. How many from the Girl Scouts? So what do we know about the Girl Scouts? What's really, really very important this year about the Girl Scouts? Every Girl Scout should know this. Yes. Yes, you.
Oh, it's the 100th year.
It's the 100th year of the Girl Scouts of America. And there's a wonderful story about how the Girl Scouts got started. So I hope all of you will go back home and Google Girl Scouts and read about it. Because it's a wonderful story about a woman whose life wasn't all that great. Who got married and then divorced and then came back here and then decided to do something influential and become a leader. And she founded the Girl Scouts of America. So the Girl Scouts this year is making it the year of the girl. How about that? And so it's all going to be about young girls and how we can help you dream to become what you want to be more than anything else. And we want you to imagine. Now, one of the things that has been studied recently is that only 1 in 5 young girls thinks she has what it takes to become a leader. How many of you think that you could be a leader? Oh, you learn fast, okay. Every woman who's going to speak here today is going to tell you a story that will suggest to you that when she was your age, she didn't necessarily know what she wanted to be, and she continued to dream. And she wasn't necessarily always secure about what she wanted to be, but she continued to dream. I actually wasn't secure about what I wanted to be, but I still had a dream. And if you talk to the President of the United States, he would tell you he wasn't secure in terms of knowing what he wanted to be. But he kept pushing forward. So we're going to spend a lot of time this morning kind of talking about all of these things. One of my favorite quotes is a paperweight that I keep on my desk in Washington, D.C. And on this paperweight it says, "What would you do if you knew you could not fail?" Now, all the adults are kind of raising their eyebrows because, you know, it works for us too, right? What would we do if we knew we could not fail? And that's been a mantra of mine throughout my life because, you know what? I have failed a lot. This is what a 3-time loser looks like. It's true. I lost for student body president in high school. It was devastating. I lost for Congress in 1979, the first time that I ran. I came in third in a field of 12. I was the only woman in the race. But it prepared me the following year to run for the Board of Supervisors here in San Mateo County and work just a few blocks from here as a member of the Board of Supervisors. I became the youngest member ever to serve on the Board of Supervisors. And then in 2006, I ran for Lieutenant Governor of California. And I lost again. But every time I lost, it prepared me for the next step. So when I lost for Lieutenant Governor in California, a year and a half later, the congressman decided he wasn't going to run for re-election, and so I decided to run. And then a month later, he died, so a special election was held. So in a short period of time, in 3 months, I walked onto the floor of the House of Representatives and was sworn in as a member of Congress. So, you're going to hear from some very powerful women this morning. And the very first one you're going to hear from is someone that I have known most of my life. And besides being a story about a great career, it's a story about friendship. Because Captain, Kathleen Wentworth, and I went to high school together. And at every point in our lives, we have been there for each other. She mostly for me, because there's been kind of things that have happened to me in my life. And one of the things that happened to me was way back in 1978, I got shot in Jonestown, Guyana. And when I came back home, and I was in a hospital bed in Baltimore, Kathleen showed up in her uniform and flew across country to be there for me. And then years later, when my husband passed away, she took 3 weeks off as a pilot and came to my aid and helped me put my life back together again. So this is a story about friendship as well as an extraordinary career. Kathleen Wentworth has been flying since she was 21 years of age. She's been a United Airlines pilot since she was 28. She's a captain of a 777. Did I do good? Yeah. But even before then, after she graduated from college, she became a lawyer. And she worked here in San Mateo County as an assistant district attorney. And then she changed her mind and wanted to do a different career. And then she went and studied to become a pilot. So, please welcome Captain Kathleen Wentworth.
Good morning, everybody. I'm glad you're all here. I should tell you at the outset, one of the setbacks that Jackie had in her life, I also shared. I also lost when I ran for student body president. I too recovered from it, but it was devastating at the time, wasn't it? I have to tell you, when I was a young girl growing up, they did not allow women to be airline pilots. It wasn't done. It wasn't allowed. No one would hire a woman as an airline pilot. Things have changed. Things have definitely changed. And we can thank our government and the EEOC for all of those changes that have come about over the years. So now I am captain of a Boeing 777, which is looks about like this, although substantially bigger. Instead of being about this long, it's about 200 feet long. and holds about 350 people. Now I have to apologize, my son used to play with this airplane when he was young, so it's undergone some repairs over the years, and not by a licensed mechanic, I might add. This is a great airplane, and it's been a great career. One thing I should ask at the outset, who's been in an airplane flying? Let me see. Oh, great, pretty good, pretty good. Okay, those who hasn't been flying, have you been to an airport or seen an airplane flying around? So you know how it works. All right, that's the important thing. Now, those of you who have been flying, which is a lot of you, have any of you gone up and visited the cockpit? Oh, okay. You got that figured out, how that works? So I apologize, kind of a small picture. This is the cockpit in my airplane. I'll let you guys pass that around if you want. You can take a look. It's just filled with computers and CRT screens and lots of fancy stuff that we need to get ourselves from here to there across the country and across the world. Now, was there somebody in here, a couple people that were interested in being an airline pilot or thinking about it, possibly? Good, all right. Got a couple people. And the rest of you, keep an open mind, because it's a pretty cool job, I have to tell you. You might just be interested. Let me tell you for those of you who fly, and for those of you who might want to learn how it all works out, let me give you an idea of how the airline industry works, how the airplane works. First of all, we've got these people sitting in the front of the airplane, right? Pilots, that's where they're going to sit in front of the airplane. And as we're looking at this airplane, looking at it this way, the person on the left, that's the important person. That's the captain. Okay, the person on the right is the co-pilot or the first officer. And when I travel on international flights, I usually have 3 first officers with me so that we can take a little rest break along our long flights. And you might ask, well, how can you tell who's the captain, who's the first officer? And the way you can tell is that our uniforms are explanatory. We've got stripes on our sleeves. The co-pilots have 3 stripes, and I have how many stripes? 4. Yeah, only the captain gets to have 4 stripes. And if we're not wearing our jacket, we wear little epaulets. Same idea, 4 stripes on them, and that's how you can tell. If we happen to be wearing our hats, you can see that on the hat, there's what we call scrambled eggs. Don't know where that came from, don't ask me, I'm sure it's Googleable somewhere. But only the captain gets to have scrambled eggs on her hat. Or his hat, as the case may be. So that's who's who. So you say, well, okay, we've got at least 2 pilots in the airplane. One's the captain and one's the co-pilot, first officer. What do they do all day? What do? You sit up there? Is that what you do? You sit there? Yeah, well, it looks that way. Yeah, thanks for the backup and saying, no, we don't just sit there, do we? No, we're hard at work. We usually show up about an hour and a half to 2 hours before our flight. We use the computers at work, and we check the weather, for our takeoff weather, for our destination weather, where we're going to land today. We look at the airports between here and there to make sure it's good weather everywhere. Or if it's not good weather, we make plans to decide how we're going to handle it if we have to land where there's bad weather. And we have very automated, very sophisticated airplanes that help us make that decision where we're going to land and to land there, even when we can't see very far ahead of us at all. So we get there, we look at the winds, the weather, we look at the fuel, and they usually have provided us a routing on our paperwork where they are filed for us to fly. And we look at it, we look at the fuel they're proposing to put on board, and then I look at the weather and decide, it's kind of crummy weather where we're going. I think I'd like to have a little more fuel in case I have to go into what's called a holding pattern. So sometimes I add a little bit of fuel for that. So I've made all those decisions, I've signed the flight plan, and I get to the airplane. At this point, my co-pilot, just tradition, we send the co-pilot outside to do the inspection of the outside of the airplane. I think it arose from those days in which it was raining outside or cold or snowing. It's like, not my job, Mom. You go outside. So the co-pilot goes around outside and inspects the airplane to make sure everything is in proper working order, if there are no nicks or dings or anything inappropriate. While he or she's doing that, I'm in the airplane. I'm talking to my senior flight attendant, briefing her on what If we've got turbulence today, maybe I need for them to sit down for a while after takeoff because we're going to go through some bumpy clouds on the way out. So I need to make sure she and her crew are going to be safe, or he and his crew are going to be safe, depending on my gender of my lead flight attendant today. At that point, it's about time for the people to come on board. You guys know how that goes, right? You get out of your chairs in the waiting area, you go into the jetway with another 100 people or so, and you wait and wait until everybody stores their luggage and you get your seat, right? What's your favorite seat? Aisle?
Yes.
Window? Yeah. See, there's pilots in this crowd. If you're a pilot type, you want to be in that window, looking out that window in the sky, absolutely, in the scenery. And that's probably one of the best parts about the job, is that we're in the front of the airplane and we have windows surrounding us that give you a magnificent view of the world. It's really pretty exciting. Let's see, what else to tell you? Once we've got everybody on board, we're going to talk to the tower, get permission to taxi out to the runway, take off, and then it's not too much different from driving your car. Okay, it's a little different, but it's kind of like that. So we've got a wheel in our airplane like this will be in your car. So if I turn my wheel left, my airplane goes left. If I turn my wheel right, my airplane goes right. We try to do it a little more gently than that, perhaps, so don't get you too nervous. But in addition to our airplane wheel going like this, our airplane wheel also goes like this. So when I pull back, the airplane goes up. When I push forward, the airplane goes down. And of course, you can combine those maneuvers, right? So we're going to turn and go up, and we're going to turn and go down. So that's what we're doing. We are at the end of the runway, and we are putting the power up with the throttles, just like a gas pedal in a car, and we're zipping down the runway. And this airplane, despite being a darn big airplane, can go from 0 to 60 in less than 6 seconds. And that can rival some of the, certainly as good as my car can do. So now we're airborne, and that's just fun. You're just flying out into the sky, talking to the folks in the tower, getting direction, and heading off to your destination, wherever that may be. After we're flying for, depending on the flight, anywhere from an hour to 12 hours, it's time to land. Some of our flights, I fly to Europe, I fly to London, Frankfurt, Germany, Paris, France. On the other side of the world, I fly to Beijing and Shanghai in China and South Korea, Japan, Tokyo, Osaka. And so some of those flights are definitely 12 hours in length. So I told you the good part about the job. I mean, it is really good. You are looking, you're exposed, you get to go to fun places in the world. You go shopping in Beijing, and lots of cool stuff. You can you go up in the Eiffel Tower in Paris and look down on the city lights. There are some awesome things that you can do in this job. But I don't want to make it sound like it's all fun. There's a lot of work involved. Work during your workday and work getting there. If you want to be a pilot, you need to start, you don't need to start young, but the younger you think about it, the younger you start taking lots of math and science in school. Math and science are really key courses for life, but they're really important in this kind of job. So math and science, keep that in mind. The other thing that's important in your younger life, if you want a career like this, is to avoid drugs and alcohol. We are drug tested and alcohol tested regularly at work. We show up at work. They will pull us off and give you an alcohol test, or they'll have you go provide a sample and take a drug test. So avoiding drugs and alcohol and the involvement in the legal system and the criminal justice system, staying away from that is really, really key. You will not get hired with a criminal record or with drug or alcohol in your past. So stay clear of that. You can have a lot more fun flying than you ever have on drugs or alcohol, trust me. So now let's talk about how do you get there? How do you get this cool job? So you're staying away from the bad stuff. You're focusing on good classes in school. Then it's time to go to college. Nowadays, everybody needs a college degree to get an airline job. After you do that, you need to get some flight time. So you have two choices, really. You can join the military, which has a wonderful, no competition, wonderful flight training program, any of the branches of the military. And that will give you flight training for free. They'll train you to fly airplanes, you'll be flying jets, you'll be flying cool stuff. But you're committing yourself to 6 to 8 years of your life in the military. And with everything that brings, the regimentation, the danger, that's a choice for some people. Not for me, but it's a choice for some people. The other way to get to the flying job is through the civilian route, and that is that you go, does anyone know where San Carlos Airport is? Yeah. San Carlos Airport, right down the road here, has flying lessons. And I'm not going to say they're cheap, but if you want it, I worked in high school as a waitress and earned money, and started flying when I was in college, when I was working part-time as well. If you want something, you can make it happen. It may be tough, but you can make it happen if you want it to happen. You go out and you get your flying lessons, then you start flying in little airplanes and bigger airplanes and bigger airplanes, and then finally you get to fly the cool, fun stuff. And along the way, you're working long hours. You are working, getting up at 3 in the morning. You are working till you're dead tired, and it is a drag. It is a lot of work, and not very much fun. But you have to pay your dues until you can get up and get the cool stuff. Now, for those of you who might just be interested or might just want to check it out, at San Carlos Airport is Hiller Aviation Museum. And every so often they have introductory days where you can go out there and they'll give you a free ride in an airplane. Local pilots provide this, and it is a cool introduction. Or you can ask for a holiday gift or a birthday gift, perhaps to get a free introductory lesson from your parents or from your grandparents or whatever, whoever might be able to spring for it. And that's really cool, because then you get a licensed instructor to go with you, and they'll teach you how to actually do some of that. Those introductory flights are really cool. Let's see, time, 2 minutes? Yeah, about 1 minute. 1 minute, okay. Let's see, what can I tell you in 1 minute? Some of the challenges along the way I've had. I have had to turn back. A few months ago, I had to make a U-turn over the Pacific Ocean and bring back a man who was dying of a heart attack. And that was pretty traumatic for everybody involved, because he was extremely ill, and our flight attendants are eyes and ears and workers in the back. Those flight attendants really run the cabin so beautifully for us. They are so trained and so wonderful. And they are back there. They took care of this man. They hung an IV from up above him. They were zapping him with the AED. They kept him alive, and we got back to San Francisco as quickly as we could to get him to the hospital, where he did very well. And 3 weeks later, he was on my flight going to Japan. I have some little booklets for those of you. I don't have a lot. I think I have 15 or 20 on how to become an airline pilot. If you do take these, or if you want to take them, and you've looked through them, please leave the copy with your guidance counselor at school, or your librarian, or someone that you can that counsels young people on careers, and they will find that very handy. We'll do questions later. Thank you all.
All right, now you're going to have a really incredible treat. I think it's a treat for your parents as well as for you, because you're going to meet a historical figure. She's someone who's received a Congressional Gold Medal. Her name is Minnijean Brown Trickey. And 50 years ago, she helped desegregate a school in Arkansas. The laws had changed, so no longer did African American kids go to separate schools. No longer did they have separate toilets that they used, or separate water fountains that they could drink at. But some of the people who were white still didn't want to play by those rules. And so it was very traumatic. But Minnijean was really very, very courageous. And there were armed guards, and she walked bravely into school. And she's going to tell you that whole story. But for the rest of her life, she has been teaching all of us about the importance of desegregation. She is very involved with a program called Sojourn to the Past, and it's a program that takes high school students back through the civil rights movement and retraces the steps. And the program got started right here in San Mateo County by a man who was a teacher at Cappuccino High School called Jeff Steinberg, so that if you want to be part of that program in the future, we can make sure that you hear more about that. But Minnijean has also received her degree. She went on to college. She's received honorary doctorate degrees and been recognized by the NAACP as well. So she is really a hero, a shero to many of us, and we're just thrilled that she is here in the Bay Area right now and has given us this time. So please welcome Minnijean.
Well, let's right now help. Thank you for help. I think there's nothing that gives me more pleasure than to look at a beautiful room such as this. Because the time that we're talking about, we mostly, not only in Arkansas, but across our nation, couldn't sit together like this. So this is, for me, the absolute most beautiful feeling I have when I look out and see how beautiful and the variety and knowledge and the richness of this room. So it gives me very special pleasure. So we, it's the story that was involved in at 16 is one of the most American history stories ever, because it was about the Constitution and the Supreme Court and mob violence and nonviolence and the use of state troops to fight federal law, the use of federal troops to, oh my goodness, it's such a rich story, and I'm so proud to have been part of that, and part of, I guess, what I want to say is what happens to us when we have that experience. I think the Little Rock desegregation crisis is one of the most beautiful stories we have in our American experience, because it's about teenagers. Teenagers making history. We don't. I was trying to see what books were in the library. There aren't very many, because we aren't accustomed to thinking that teenagers make history, or children, as a matter of fact. Have any of you heard of Ruby Bridges? So yeah, Ruby was 6. Yes, so cool. I'm so happy. Ruby was 6 when she made history. So that means we're all capable of changing the world and making history. Her story, as a matter of fact, his or her story. So that's one of my themes, is ordinary people often have to do extraordinary things to make the changes we want to see in the world. And I have to tell you that at Capitol Grounds in Little Rock, Arkansas, there are life-size statues of the Little Rock Nun. I don't know about you, but I'm alive and I have a statue. And I go back. So we were asked to say something or have a theme. And for my statue, I said, use Gandhi's words, be the change you wish to see in the world, because it seems to me that no words are better for encouraging us, getting us excited, and making things happen. So, be the change you want to see in the world. We have these amazing women here. The sky's the limit. We can do anything. So I have to say, hi, Mr. Fryer. How many sojourn people do we have in here? Okay, that's good. We should have at least 100 more at some point. How did my experience influence my life? Well, we call it life's work. Well, it sent me on a search to find out why was 16. I'm beautiful. I have a smile to die for. I'm talented. And I'm smart. What's not to like? And it gets in a situation where people hated me to the point that they really wanted to kill me because I wanted to walk into this school. So that puzzled me, and it set me on this lifelong sort of learning thing. So I'm trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've had some amazing opportunities. The way that I worked with immigrant and refugee women, and the way I walk into a room is to say, I may be called a teacher, but in fact, this is about learning, and I'm going to get everything I can out of this experience because that's how it's supposed to be. I'm going to tell a secret to you young people at the front. My favorite audience is like 8 to 12, okay? Does anybody fit that? Yes. And part of that reason is because at that age, we're open, we're curious, we're like sponges, and we soak in information, and that's where I want to be of the most use is young people, because I've almost given up on the old. So I was at a school, last week I was at 2 schools, and they were, elementary schools, so yeah, it was great. But how did my experience, it made me want to be a kind person, because I wanted to do work that would help us never to do cruelty toward other people for whatever reason. It made me curious about finding out about the world, and I've been really fortunate. It's the subject of a documentary, so I've talked to kids in Belfast, and they taught me things about, I've talked to kids in South Africa, kids in New Zealand, kids in many places in the world, and I'm learning from them. So they call me a social worker. I mean, that's what I went to college for. One part of college, I went the first time with journalism, so we don't have to decide. I call it being open to which way the wind blows. So I'm a writer and a teacher. I have a part of a CD that was made when I was 69. It's about finding all kinds of excitement in life and going with it. I think we're talking about what I've worked for government, which is very interesting. What are the problems, right, with what I do? Well, often as a trainer, I'm training people who don't want to hear what I have to say, so I have to trick them into doing things to help them learn about themselves. So I'm really good at exercises that reveal people's secrets. And the whole idea of, I'm teaching with Jeff Steinberg 3 courses at Yada, CSM, and Skyline. I got that right, I think so. And I'm looking at the class and saying, you know what, this should just be a big discussion, because we've got the world in the room. We've got older people, medium people, and high school students. This is the learning spot. You know, we can talk, we can exchange, we can learn things together. So, what did I learn and what do I do? I speak. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, okay? and that is the truth. And I don't know what I will be doing next. But I just want to say that whatever things we think we want to do, we should try it for a while. And if we don't like it, do something else. And I think with these amazing things, you see that it is trial and error. Life is. And you get to have all these interesting experiences. What's the time? 2 minutes. So we're going to do questions later. But I'm going to pass this girl in this picture is Elizabeth Eckford. This photograph went all over the world. Part of the reason I wanted to be a journalist when I first went to college was because the journalists saved our lives by taking pictures of us and flooding the world with the pictures. So this picture is Elizabeth Eckford with my friend, one of the Little Rock Nine, as she tried to, and it's not easy to see, but she's being attacked by these people who are yelling, kill her, hang her, drag her over to this tree, go back to Africa, you can't go to our school, we hate you. So this photo, you can Google Little Rock desegregation crisis. There are lots of books on the story. There are documentaries on the story. There's even a Disney movie called The Ernest Green Story, which is kind of cleaned up, but it does the job. It's kind of like the Ruby Bridges story. By the way, for you who know Ruby, who like to know the Ruby, Ruby is a good friend of mine. And the other thing about being involved in these things is you get to meet all these cool people. And that to me is a great pleasure. So, thank you so much. I'm going to pass, you can look at this picture and pass it around. And I'm going to tell the librarian what needs to be in this one.
So the question is, how many of you would walk into your school if there were people all around you chanting that you shouldn't be there? So some of you would be just like Minnijean. We want all of you to be able to raise your hands by the end of this program. But we're going to take a little break now. I'm going to have you ask questions of Captain, Kathleen, and Minnijean so that we can kind of break this up a little bit. And then you have 2 more great speakers.
Who has a question? Raise your hands. Great. Can you stand up for me, please?
Okay, I know you're one of the Little Rock Nine. How were you guys selected, the 9 kids?
I think that we selected ourselves. Okay, that notice came to our high school, they call it the Colored High School, saying Central High will be desegregated. If you're interested, sign the sheet. And that, to me, is how we selected ourselves. That's how sometimes you don't even know that you're going to change the world when you just sign your name on it. So nobody knew it was going to be like that. I certainly did.
Okay, next question. Just stand up.
Were you scared?
Yeah, it was very scary because there was a lot of violence and a lot of physical, a lot of bullying, I think is the word for it, So people could think of all kinds of really mean things to do. So, but it was really important to be nonviolent and to keep, somebody wrote a book and they said, oh, they hated Minnijean, they hated her, she was so disgusting. So after quite a long while, the woman said, well, why did you hate her so much? And they said, well, she walked the halls of Central High like she belonged here. That's a great thing, I love that.
Question?
It's for the airplane pilot. So have you ever flown through like a serious like storm or like snowstorm, and how did you fly through it without having like panic or anything?
Well, I'll tell you, flying around thunderstorms is what we do on a regular basis, whether it's in the Midwest during the summertime or other parts of the world another time. What we have. Thank you. Is that better? It's okay. Can you hear me in the back okay? Part of our equipment in the airplane are multiple radar systems, and so we have a radar picture of what's in front of us, and we do not fly through thunderstorms. That is not a good thing to do on any kind of day. We give them a wide berth and we go right around them. Sometimes we will fly through, you have to fly through clouds. You can't avoid it completely. We generally know the kind of clouds that are going to cause turbulence, and that's why sometimes you'll see sometimes see the seatbelt sign go on even though it's not bumpy. It's because we know it's going to get bumpy, or we have a pretty good idea it's going to get bumpy. And I will say that at one point, it wasn't too long ago, we were coming into San Francisco Bay Area, and we were staying far away from thunderstorms, but we got what's called a static discharge, which is like lightning, but it's cloud to airplane. And it was a loud bang, and it was very exciting for all the people in the back because they weren't expecting this and they really didn't want this. And as a result, for other reasons, we wound up landing in San Jose instead of San Francisco because it was just we were running low on fuel. We needed to go land and get fuel. We landed in San Jose and we had 43 holes in the fuselage from this lightning strike. Little, some of them as small as a pinprick, but there were a trail of 43 holes down the side of the airplane. So we respect weather. Yes?
Kathleen, talk about the case where you were actually the voice that they reported on. Oh. Maybe not. All right.
Let me get to questions and I can get to that one later.
All right. Want to stand up for me, please? So everyone can see you. Thank you.
Have you ever crashed your plane?
That is a great question. Have I ever crashed the plane? Absolutely not. I am very grateful. Yeah, I'm fine. I have not crashed the airplane. We are trained to avoid that. We want to avoid that at all costs. Now, I will say one flight I'm not turned on at all. It just, yeah. One flight I was going from San Francisco to, I guess we were going to New York. And about halfway across the country, we're flying along, not worrying about too much. We're just level and everything's going well. And all of a sudden, the airplane starts shaking like this, and we hear this bang, 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 bang. Oh, this is not going to be a good day. And it turns out one of our engines was failing, and it just turned off. We have this two-engine airplane. So we have very good engines, so the one that remained was very strong, and it kept us flying along until I could choose. In that case, I had some decisions to make. I had to find an airport nearby. I mean, we could fly for a while on one engine, but it's not a good plan. You want to get on the airplane on the ground. So I had to get weather at airports all around me and decide what was the best place to land. And we landed, called fire trucks and everything to stand by just in case we had any problems. We made a beautiful, safe landing with just one engine. So the airplanes are pretty cool.
We have two questions over here.
If you needed to, could you fly your plane backwards?
Could I, if I needed
We'll go to the next question next.
Could I fly backwards? No. You know, I suppose if they reverse the engines, I could. But no, the engines are making forward thrust, and it can only go forward in a forward position based on the engines. That's it.
Have you ever been inside of an eye of the of a tornado?
No, and I never want to be.
It's really calm.
They say there are some crazy pilots that do that kind of tornado chasing, and they have specially equipped aircraft that are super strong, super reinforced, and they're special. Everything about that is special. We don't do that. Our passengers would not be happy.
Okay, we're going to do 2 more questions and then get into the next 2 speakers.
I have a question for Minnijean. What inspired you to keep on going to school when things were at its worst?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I think it was kind of just being tired. I mean, I don't know if you can imagine not being able to go to, say, McDonald's or Dairy Queen or to go to the theater and sit where you want and having signs on water fountains that said white and colored and all kinds of crazy things. And I think that even as children, we know that's not right, and we have to try. Or to sit on, you can sit anywhere you want on the bus. But we, as black kids, couldn't. And there was a story I have to tell you quickly. I was throwing up my money. I was 6, coming from school with a group of girls. And I was throwing money to get on the bus up, and I swallowed it. I know I'm not the only person in the world who ever swallowed a coin. However, the bus driver said, well, you can't get on the bus. And I was this little girl. And the rule was that you got on, paid your money, then got off and went to the back. So I thought the bus was just going to leave me. So a black woman in the back said, "Baby, I'll pay your fare." So I had to go get the money in the back, come and put it in the money thing, the receptacle, get off, and go back to the back of the bus. And you know what? Even at 6, I said, this doesn't make sense. So when things don't make sense, you have to try to do something better, because it'll keep not making sense if you don't do something. Great question.
Okay, our last question.
Oh, yes, the airline pilot. When you decided on your career, which was unusual for a woman, what kind of pushback did you experience or resistance? What was that like?
How much time do we have? I will say, once I was hired, 99% of the people were wonderful. There's always going to be a few people that you don't want to deal with. But even in that 99%, this was a severe culture shock at that time. I mean, severe culture shock. These pilots had never seen a woman in the cockpit. And so for them, it was a comfort level that they just couldn't reach. And unfortunately, I don't think airline managements realized that. And so I don't want to say they needed sensitivity training, but they needed something. Early on, I flew with this very nice captain who said, and this was early on the flight, and he said, early on in my career, and he said, "Oh, would you mind stepping out in the jetway? I need to talk to you." And I thought, what have I done now? And I said, "Can I ask you a personal question?" And I said, "Well, I guess you could ask." And he said, "Am I supposed to treat you like a lady or like a pilot?" But after I thought about it, I thought, that's the question that everybody had in their minds, but nobody could ask. How am I supposed to treat you? And I said, if we run into each other in the street or on the layover, treat me whatever is your manners dictate. But if I'm in uniform, you treat me like a pilot. He said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "Now that I know what the rules are, that's fine. I'm happy with that."
All right.
Let's hear it. All right, now you're going to hear from Yanehiro, who started her career in the airlines too, as a flight attendant for TWA. And this is a great example of how you may have many careers in your life. So Kathleen was a district attorney and then became a pilot. And Jan started as a flight attendant, and then she went to work as a reporter for a radio station, and then became an on-air personality. She was on TV every day of the week on Evening Magazine for Channel 7. Where's Channel 5? Channel 5. Channel 5. Close enough. Channel 5. And it was called Evening Magazine. And she's going to tell you some phenomenal stories about what her career was like being on Evening Magazine. Since then, she has become the director at the Academy of Arts University in San Francisco and has created a huge department on multimedia and to train young people how to get into the business. She's a recipient of an Eleanor Roosevelt Humanitarian Award, and the Girl Scouts gave her a Woman of Distinction Award. So, Jan Yanehiro is our next presenter. Jan?
I was a Girl Scout. We're the Girl Scouts. I was actually a Brownie. Girl Scout, I was troop, I think, 210 in Hawaii. I was born and raised in Hawaii. So we're my Girl Scouts. I see the Girl Scouts, the badges. I love it. I love it. Girl Scouts USA. Okay. I was also a flight attendant, as Jackie mentioned. I worked for TWA. So Captain Kathleen, of course, she's in the cockpit. I was in the back serving, of course, for security. So you will have lots of different careers. And now I find myself talking about television. There's several things about television, and I want to tell you, I'm going to do a demonstration. So this is a Panasonic camera. This is what the reporters use today. This is the actual camera. It's HD. I'm going to turn it on. We're going to do some fun interview sessions. But beyond that, I will tell you that today, I mean, you all have, I saw a lot of parents with a iPhone. Yes, iPhone. Here's my iPhone, yeah, for all the Palo Alto people, Insanity, all right. You can take, young ladies, you have the iPhone or the Android? No, you will have one, okay. Yeah, you can take video with your iPhone and it can air on television. So, never leave home without it. It's true. The iPhones today are HD. So you can take this, turn it on, go to your video, you can record, it's not really tape anymore, you can record anything and load it, of course for YouTube, but you can send it to a television station and they can air it on television. So that's the beauty of the iPhone. The other thing that we're seeing right now, this is a Kodak Play Touch. It's like the Flip Minnow. They don't make the Flip anymore. This is HD. It takes still pictures and it takes video. And I'm going to pass it around. And it is the coolest thing. You can take pictures on the video. You can record on this, all digital, upload it to your computer, send it to a television station, and your story can air on that television station. This is how far and how wonderful technology has become. So this is called the Kodak Play Touch. Pass it around. Come, go, stand up. Stand up, stand up. Okay, take a look. What do you see? Pan the audience, pan the audience. There you go. Is that cool?
Yep.
What do you think?
It's really cool.
This is HD. You can record this, send it up on YouTube, send it up on the computer, send it up to television stations. So do pass it around, okay? Now, so I brought this because I'm going to have some of you become reporters. This is an actual Panasonic HD. I got it fully loaded. And one thing that I will say about reporters today, and those of you who want to become reporters and anchors, who are my top anchors and reporters in this audience? In the back? Here? Okay. Come, you two girls. So one of you will be, well, actually what you do today, you're going to both do. We're going to pretend that you're both a reporter and a camera person. But you're both going to switch because you both have to know how to do it. Today's reporter, you have to know how to shoot, how to report, how to edit, how to host. You have to know how to do it all. Okay, so we're going to show everybody that you can see this? Now, you're going to hold this. Now, you can look at this, or you can look at this. It's the viewfinder, so everybody, this is called the viewfinder. And you can look at the viewfinder and see your fingers right here. Do tight and wide. See? Okay, so you are going to be my reporter. You are going to shoot her delivering a message about what she's learning here today. Okay, so. You look good. You're on camera. You look good. Okay, you got her in focus? Here? Okay. So, countdown. 3, 2.
We are learning about these famous women who have different careers. One of them is a broadcaster. There was somebody who's part of the Little Rock Nine. There's an airplane pilot and a congresswoman named Jackie Speier.
Now you're going to switch. So because you have to do it all, right? Okay, you take the camera, put your hand in there. You come. Hold it up. So now you have a choice. See this right here? You see that? So now, move it. Do wide. And then do tight. Okay? So what's your aim? Right there. Okay. Hold it up. You can do it. Okay, in 3. Go.
We are learning about girl power for Girl Scouts, and we're learning about women's different jobs. We have a congresswoman, airplane pilot, and one of the broadcasters, a doctor, and we're learning about their different jobs and what they've done in history.
And what have you learned today? Yourself.
I've learned about there's many things you can do for a job, and you're not limited.
I need 2 more volunteers really quick. Okay, you 2 right here. Come on up. I know. Well, you know, I'm going to pass the camera around so everybody can do it. But we're limited in time. So, right, you're going to be the camera person. You hold that like that. Can you see the viewfinder? Okay, now we're going to turn this way so that you come this way. Now, here's the thing. Take the microphone, so you're the reporter. You're the camera person. Can you see that? So, put your fingers. Go wide. There you go. Check pull. Can you see her? Adjust. You like that shot? Yeah? Okay. What's the hottest movie today? We're going to talk about entertainment. The Hunger Games. All right, you know the Hunger Games? Yes. So you're going to be the reporter, and you're going to interview people about the Hunger Games.
Okay.
Can you do that? You are going to follow her around as she interviews people. Is that good? Okay. You got to keep her in your frame, right? Yeah. Okay. So you turn around and you're going to ask her a question about the Hunger Games. Pick people that have not spoken. Okay.
Okay. What do you like about the Hunger Games?
I don't even know what they are.
Okay.
Go in this way. And you're the camera person. You have to like move in, don't get ready.
What's the best part that you like about the Hunger Games? I like all of it.
Okay? And keep moving on. Say, you know, you think that Josh Hutchinson is cute.
Okay.
Move on to another person. You get into this job here.
Why do you think the Hunger Games is awesome?
There you go.
Because it is a really good book, and they made the book in a really good movie, and they cast the characters, which really fit the characters of the book.
Okay, there you go. Switch, because everybody has to know how to do everything, right? Now you can ask the questions. You will work the camera. And you put your hands to that. Okay, now what question, I'm going to just give you, what question would you like to ask today?
Do you like pita with brown hair or blonde hair?
Okay, that's good. Okay, so now you follow her around. Follow her. Can you see her in the shot? See that? Is that cool? Okay, so find somebody you want to interview. Okay, now you follow her with the camera. Okay, stand up. Okay, everybody, audience, we got to hear this. So you follow there you go, you got her, and you want them to come close because you want them in a two-shot. You want to see both of them in one shot. Okay, ask your question.
So, do you like pita with brown hair or blonde hair?
I think that the book definitely describes him with blonde hair, and I think that blonde hair.
Can I ask you to ask her about how do you feel about children having to really kill children in this movie, the violence? So how would you say that? Because it's a significant part of this movie and the book. So.
Well, if you were in the Hunger Games, would you feel right if you were like killing other people because you didn't want to die yourself?
I feel really unfair that other kids have to kill each other, and I would probably fight back, but I would probably just try to stay alive but not kill anybody.
Yeah. So great question, and this is the wrap up. This is called the wrap up. You talk to your camera, to the audience, it's just right in here, and you give your opinion of the Hunger Games. Can you do that? Your opinion, what you think about exactly what she said, about the motivation, about the story, about what you would change maybe, what would you do? Can you do that? Okay. Okay, we're going to go in 3, 2.
So in the Hunger Games, I personally think that the people should not rebel because they're practically making children's life, well, some children's life destroyed because they're fighting to the death. And also the ruler, I think is kind of crazy, and they should pick another person to do that. Someone who's nicer and not as weird.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to our reporters. I am going to, well, maybe we'll wait after the next speaker and I'll pass this around and you can see, these days the camera is very light. So you saw our reporters holding it. Before when I started, the camera weighed 40 pounds because it was made out of steel. And it was thought that women couldn't carry 40-pound cameras. And I said, we carry 40-pound babies. So we can carry 40-pound cameras. But now the camera is so light. And, it's all digital. There are no tape and anything else. And it's on, off, top. And I barely gave the young girls here a demonstration. They knew exactly how to do it.
It's really easy to pick up and to shoot and to do. So I expect everybody in here to be fabulous reporters and anchors and search for the good story, get that curiosity going, ask the deep questions, great answers. Thank you, everybody. And when you become great reporters and anchors and you ask the big questions, this is an actual Emmy. This is mine. This is what you win. In television, it's the Emmy, and this is what she looks like. She looks like. In the movies, it's the Oscar, and it's a he. But luckily in television, it's a she. So there's the Emmy.
So Jan didn't tell you, but when she was on Evening Magazine, she did lots of fun things like bungee jumping, skydiving. She actually almost gave birth to one of her children on the air. She has 3 children that are now young adults, so it was a really fun career for all the years she did it. The other interesting thing I'm going to tell you about Jan, when I was a young legislator, she would interview me from time to time on the anniversary of Guyana. So we sort of knew each other. But then things happened in both our lives that were pretty profound. My husband died, and then a year later her husband died, and we became very, very, very good friends. And so we've been great supporters to each other ever since. So friendships start when you're young, and friendships sometimes start when you're older, but they can be very helpful to you in your lives. Especially when you have great girlfriends. So you should remember that as well. All right, our final speaker is an MD and a PhD. She's been going to school for a long time. This is Dr. Sue Carlisle. She's an anesthesiologist. How many know what anesthesia is? She might tell you a little bit about that. She is an assistant professor at UCSF, and then moved up to full professor in 1999. Now she's the associate dean and professor of medicine and clinical anesthesia at UCSF San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center. So she's had a really impressive career and recently received the Chancellor's Award for Advancement of Women. So please welcome Dr. Carlisle.
I am delighted to be here talking to you today, and listening to Minnijean and Jan and Kathleen has just been totally inspirational for me, and I know it has been for you too. It's always hard to follow an entertainer. I was asked to tell you a little bit about how I got where I am, and it's kind of an interesting story. I grew up a long time ago as a little girl in the Deep South, and my parents were school teachers, and I decided when I was 12 years old that I wanted to be a doctor. And I thought then that I would become a missionary and I would go off to the far reaches of the world and save the world. Well, then reality sort of hit when I went to college, and I was told, girls don't really make very good doctors, and besides, you're too pretty to be a doctor. You can't do that. You'll never have a life. Why don't you think of something else that you want to do that's less challenging than that? And in fact, I bought into that a little bit and decided that, well, maybe I didn't want to go to medical school. And instead, I went to graduate school and got a PhD, which was no less challenging than going to medical school, maybe even more challenging. And people tell me, well, girls don't make very good scientists either. I had one of my professors tell me, you know, you're really talented. It's really too bad you're a girl. And I won't say what I thought, but you can imagine what I thought, but I ignored him, fortunately. I went on then to run a research lab, which I did for a number of years. And then I decided, after my career in research was going extremely well, I was promoted and given tenure in the university where I was working, I said, this is not really what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to go back to Plan A. So I went and applied to medical school and got into the University of Pennsylvania, which is in Philadelphia, and spent 4 years in medical school. And then I had to decide again, what do I want to be when I grow up? And at the time, I was really unclear what I wanted to be. So I decided that I was going to do residency in internal medicine. And again, I thought, oh, I'll do infectious disease and I will go save the world. Well, I came here to San Francisco, to the University of California, San Francisco, and did a residency in internal medicine. And then a fellowship in critical care medicine, so that I was trained to take care of the sickest of the sick people. But by this time, I also had a daughter who was 12 years old, and I said, well, maybe it's time I got a job. So I got a job, and I practiced medicine. I took care of all of your parents. I did that kind of medicine. And then woke up one day and said, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So what's next? Well, I went back and I did another residency in anesthesia. So I don't know whether you've been keeping score here, but this is 12 years of elementary school, high school, 3 years of college. I went through college in 3 years just because I wanted to get it over with. 4 years of graduate school. I did a postdoc for 3 years. I did medical school for 4 years. I did an internal medicine residency for 3 years, a critical care fellowship for a year, and then they gave me a break and I only had to do 2.5 years of anesthesia before they certified me. But that's a lot of time in school. But every single minute of it has been wonderful, because it's always an opportunity to learn and grow and do something different and just have a great time. I was told when I went to medical school that it was the greatest experience in the universe. And I truly believe that that was true, because it gives you an opportunity to meet and know people in a way that nobody else on the planet has that opportunity. People come to you believing in you and trusting in you in a way that is truly, truly special. So then after I got to be an anesthesiologist, I stayed on the faculty at UCSF and I started teaching young folks who were learning to be doctors, medical students, as well as residents who come through for training there. I then was also practicing critical care medicine and anesthesia, and then I was made chief of anesthesia at San Francisco General Hospital. And what that means is that I was in charge of all of the anesthesiologists who work at the San Francisco General Hospital, which is a trauma center. That was a great job too. But then I was offered another job, which was to become the dean. And I said, well, why not? And I did that. And I'm still doing that. So what does that mean that I do? What I do is I run an office that manages the relationship between the university and the city, and we manage all of the doctors at San Francisco General Hospital, as well as all the respiratory therapists and all of that. We have a budget of about $120 million a year. And then I also run the research side of the university at San Francisco General, which is another $250 million a year. So there's a lot of responsibility as well as a lot of money that flows through that, this position. So that's how I got to where I am and what I do. So I would like to answer questions now, answer questions about what I do and how I got here. And you can
We're going to invite Janet.
Yeah, sure.
understand that medical school is quite expensive. How did you pay for all your years in medical school if you weren't working and were just doing a lot more education-related studies?
There are two issues there. One is that medical school, when I went to medical school, was less expensive than it is now, which was a good thing. I also worked part of the time I was in medical school. I was still running a research lab and still had grants that I had, and some of that paid for part of my expenses, my living expenses. I was also fortunate that I had parents who could lend me money, and I also borrowed a great deal of money, which I then paid back after I got out of medical school.
There's an interesting issue here that your parents should be thinking about relative to your future. Because when I went to law school, it cost $700 a year. And if you figured out with inflation what that would be today, that would be about $2,500 for a year of law school. But you know how much students at my law school are paying now to go to law school? $45,000 a year. So it's incumbent on the parents to fix the system so that young people aren't going to be in a situation where they're living with huge debt and saddled with huge debt when they graduate from college. So we've got to change the model that we have right now in this country for college education so that you don't have $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 worth of debt when you